Hey everybody, welcome. This is Adam coming at you from B1 Studios. I've got a lot of requests for a wheel class, so here you go. The one requirement you do need is a set wheel. So grab your wheels, grab your mats, and let's get rolling. All right, so starting at the front of your mat, we'll bring the wheel to about the middle of your spine. Okay, knees are bent, heels are right about under the knees. And we're going to place our hands just on either side of our body, right? The hands are there for stability. This warm-up is going to work on your spine, but also give you some security on the wheel, right? So as you start to press into the heels, we're going to lift our hips off the ground, bring the wheel to about the center of the spine, and then take a few breaths here. So keeping the knees bent, keeping the arms out to the side for your stability. If your head feels okay, drop it back. And then take a big breath in. Big exhale. All right, now pressing your heels into the mat, slowly start to bring your hips toward your heels and bring the wheel up your spine. All right, top of the neck, and then we're going to go all the way back down, nice and slow, right? Just like a dirt road. So think about going down a dirt road. You feel every single bump. The slower you go, the faster you go, the less bumps you feel. You want to feel all those bumps. So back and forth a couple times, about 3 or 4 times, just ironing out the spine, realigning vertebrae, and taking some time to open up your front side body. Big rounds of breath here. Now, still with our warm-up here, if you want to start to involve the arms and the shoulders, let's bring the wheel to about the top of the spine. Bring the hands out, grab the top of the wheel. So the thumbs are on the outside of the wheel, the fingers are on the inside. Elbows stay squeezed in next to your ears, so that's good rotation for your elbows and your shoulders. And we'll press into the heels again and slowly start to bring the elbows towards the ground. Now, they might not touch the ground, but feel that big stretch in the front side body from the elbows all the way through the chest. And then maybe your elbows do come down to the ground. And a couple breaths here. You can keep the hips lifted, or if you want to increase your back bend, you can slowly let the hips drop. But just remember, this is a warm-up, so take your time. And we'll take another 20 seconds here. Now, you can continue rolling the spine if that felt good. If the shoulders felt good, you can take that. If you want to find a little more traction for your spine, you can bring the wheel to about the middle of your spine. Let your hips start to get heavy, and let your head drop back and your chest open up. And we're seeing how much of our spine we can traction around the wheel. Just a little bit of movement here, back and forth. We'll take 3 more breaths. On the third exhale, slowly let the hips come down towards the ground. Support your neck, engage your core, bring your chin up. And we'll take Baddha Konasana legs. Soles of the feet touch, hips are on the ground now. The wheel's still between the shoulder blades. Hands come back to the back of the head, and we'll support the head, open up the arms wide, or the elbows wide, and then take a few breaths here. So still working on front side body, but a little more supported this time, not worried about our balance. There's 2 more breaths. All right, now engage your core. Use your hands to pull yourself up. Bring the knees together. I like to grab the front of the shins, just wrap up the front of the shins, grab for opposite elbows, and then bring my chin to my chest. I'm trying to round the spine in the opposite direction that we've been in for the past minute or so. And a couple little rocks side to side. And just 2 more breaths. And then bringing the spine nice and long, reach to the crown of the head, take a deep breath in. Squeeze knees towards your chest on the exhale. All right, and then just release. Let's bring the wheel off to the side. We're going to take a downward dog. All right, so pretty traditional downward dog. Fingers spread out, hands about shoulder width apart, feet hip distance. And then take some time here, walk out your dog. So we all have our own little downward dog dance that we like to do. So whatever that feels like for you, if it's steady pedaling out the feet and working on your hamstrings, if you like a little bit more into the hips, you can drop the knees and hips to one side, or knees to one side, hips to the other side. So whatever really feels good to you, even a little half scorpion. So if you like a half scorpion, lift the right leg, bend the knee, open up. Take a few breaths here. You can make some big knee circles. And then we'll switch sides, left leg up. Bend the knee, open up, find that half scorpion. So as you'll see, not every thing we do in a wheel class involves the wheel. Most things do, but not everything. All right, come back to your downward dog. Take one more breath here. Inhale. Big exhale. All right, then we'll come down to our knees. We're going to take lizard pose. So we're staying with the theme of our class today, working on our hips. We're going to take our wheel to the back leg, so our left leg, and place our left shin and top of left foot on the wheel, but the left knee is going to stay on the ground, okay? Right foot steps forward into our lizard pose. So the right foot steps to just to the outside of our right pinky finger. And we want to have our knee stacked more or less on top of the ankle. A lot of times in our lizard pose, we'll come a little too far in, and then as we get more depth, the knee will start to pull out and puts a lot of stress on the ankle. So start with your foot pretty wide, and then we're going to slowly work our way down into this. We're going to be here for a full minute. All right, so first start, we're going to work on our, stay up on our hands, and slowly let the hips open. All right, so this is a really good place to stay if you want to, depending on your hip flexibility. If you want to add a little bit more and you have that ability, you can move down to your elbows. Now, one elbow at a time, and you can even just take one elbow and take the right hand down. And if you have that ability, bring the right elbow down as well. Now, that's going to add some more intensity to that right hip and that right hamstring. Now, as you start to find some depth here, adding movement will help that synovial fluid that we're creating move around into the joints and keep everything nice and safe. So find a little movement side to side. Now, each one of these depths are always optional. Right? If you want to take a little bit more depth, we're going to bring our hands out side by side. And this time now our elbows are going to be left and right. So this gives our chest the ability to get a little bit deeper and get deeper into our right hip. All right? And also gives you a little movement. So you can find that movement side to side as well. So we have about 10 more seconds here before we add on our back leg. So about 2 more breaths. All right, now we're going to build our way back up to our base. So one hand at a time, come back to your hands underneath your shoulders. All right, so we want both hands on the ground. Now pressing into the hands, feel your shoulders engage. All right, right foot is really pressing into the mat. Now this is where we're going to involve our back leg. Now we're going to engage our back left glute and lift the back knee off the ground and roll the foot back. Now the wheel is supporting the back leg and the back knee is off the ground. Okay, now you can stay right here again. You can stay here, let the left hip start to drop. All right, so now we're bringing this more into our left hip flexor. Still working on our right hip, but our left hip flexor is taking a little bit more now. So engage your left glute. Stay there. If you worked your way down, you want to work your way down again. Come down to your elbows. We only have 10 more seconds here, so not as long of a hold on this second part. You find the movement. You can find your movement. Just one more breath. All right, then pause your movement. One hand at a time. Come back up to the hands. Stabilize your breath. And then we'll drop that back knee to the ground. And take a hero's pose as a counter pose. So remove the wheel off to the side. Both knees together. Sit your hips on your heels. And then just a little rock back and forth. So releasing any tension you just created on the hips, the hamstrings, all that good stuff. Stay with your breath. All right, and then we'll do the same thing other side. So grabbing our wheel, placing the wheel underneath our right shin and right foot. Right knee still on the ground. Left foot steps forward just to the outside of your left pinky finger. All right, now take your time, set up your base. Hands can stay right underneath the shoulders. Now remember when we're working with our hips, the hips are very similar, but there's a lot of differences. So think about your hips more as siblings and not twins. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. All right, so don't expect the same thing, same flexibility, same mobility out of each side. All right, so now that we've set up our base, if you started to add depth, we'll bring our right elbow down first, just seeing how that feels in this left hip. And if that felt okay, you can stay, or if you brought your other elbow down the other side, see if you can make that journey with this side. Left elbow comes down. Find your movement, find your breath. Now same option, staying right here, or if you worked into that a little bit more depth, bring your hands off to the side. So even off the mat, elbows side by side, and then we'll start to let our chest drop down. The gaze still forward, and if you find that little side to side movement, Just a little rocking side to side if that felt okay. 10 more seconds. All right, now if you're moving, pause with your movement. Going to build our base back up to our hands. The hands come underneath the shoulders. Press into the hands. Feel your shoulders and back engage. I like to squeeze my fingers also. And then engaging the back glute, we're going to lift our right knee off the mat and press the right heel back. All right, take a few breaths here. All right, this is a lot for that right hip flexor. If you find movement that felt good, go ahead and start rocking forward and back. If you like to take the journey down to your elbows, one elbow at a time, remember that's going to be a lot of depth here. With the right knee lifted, keep the right glute engaged. And we got our 10-second mark. Stay with your breath. Stay with your movement. One more breath. All right, movement pause. Release the right knee to the ground. Come back up to your hands. All right, and we'll step our left knee back, remove the wheel from the right foot, and take that hero's pose. A few breaths here. If you start to create any tension in the hips and the hip flexors, you can start to maybe give a little massage, lightly pound, just get some movement back into your hips. All right. So next we're going to work on our quads. So starting with a crescent moon variation, more into a balance and a baby bow, right? So this is going to kind of show how we can use the wheel to as a foam roller to roll out our back leg. Pardon me. So starting with the wheel underneath our right leg, so it's on the quad side of our right leg. Left leg is forward, so kind of like a crescent lunge leg. The right toes are on the mat, and the fingers are framing this left foot. And so first few rounds of breath, I'm just going to create some stability with my quad on the wheel and start to roll forward and back. And I'm controlling the depth of how much weight I'm putting into this right quad by this back toe, right? So if I want more, I'll lift my back right foot off the mat, and that's putting the entire weight of the leg into the wheel. So just little movements forward and back. If you want to work on different parts of the leg, you can roll your quad to the inside and take about 5 to 10 passes. And same thing on the other side. So we're going to work a lot on our hip flexors today. That's why we're trying to loosen up the insertion points of our quad to give it a little bit more movement in the top part. All right, so that's a little demo on how to use this as a foam roller. As we all know, traditionally we roll till we cry. We're not going to do that today. But we're going to add a little bit of balance here. So place your right hand on the right, just underneath your right shoulder. All right, now we're going to bend the back right leg. Okay, so stay right there if that feels good. All right, if you want a little more, reach back with your left hand and try to grab the inside arch of that right foot, or maybe the knife edge of the right foot. All right. Now this is a lot of balance. So looking down toward that right hand will help your stability. Looking up over your left shoulder will increase your challenge for balance. Now, if you want to continue rolling, your right quad is very engaged now. So just be quick, be very careful. Little passes forward and back. Keep the constant pressure kicking back. 2 more breaths. All right, now gently release the back foot. Try not to let it slingshot down. Left hand comes down. All right, stabilize. And then we'll bring our self off the wheel, and we'll switch sides. All right, so starting with our crescent lunge legs. Right leg forward, left leg back. Wheel underneath the left quad. All right, so long, low lunge. All 10 fingers framing this right foot. Toes are on the ground for the left foot in the back. Right, so just to really gauge how much pressure we want to put into this left quad. So take a few breaths here, a couple passes, feel it out. And then if you know you want to add more, lifting the back leg or the back toes off the mat. So you put the full weight of the quad into the wheel. And if you found a little movement inside and outside, just a few passes here and there. It'll be for about 10 more seconds. All right, now if you're finding movement, pause. We're going to take that twist. So plant the left hand underneath your left shoulder. Really stabilize your body, bend your left leg, take this in stages. All right, right hand's going to reach back, and grab the knife edge of the left foot. And start just by kicking here. Feel the tension, feel the engagement. Gaze can come down towards your left hand for stability or look up over the right shoulder for a little more challenge. And then if you found movement, a little rock forward and back. Gentle movement. So the quad is very engaged now, so it's going to be a lot more intense. It's 2 more passes. All right, now pause, release gently the back foot, right hand comes forward, stabilize, and then we'll remove the wheel. All right, so starting to warm up a little bit more into the hip flexors, quads, hamstrings, things like that. I'm going to start to work into some back bend, so getting more into our hip flexors now. So we're going to start with our right leg forward, left leg back. So the wheel is going to come underneath the right leg. So I like to position the wheel in our crescent moon pose. I like to position my wheel behind my right calf, underneath my right hip. All right, so that gives me enough stability, enough depth to support my hips. But that's basically what we're looking to do, is support our hips. So if that doesn't feel good here, if that's too deep or you need a little bit more stability, you can work the wheel back underneath your right hip. All right, so that'll work also if you're trying to stabilize your hips. Okay, so again, I like to have my wheel here. I'm going to take a long step back with this left knee. Okay, so really starting to work on these hip flexors a little bit more. So if you like to come a little bit farther forward here, this might create some separation. So that's where the wheel coming back here might be better. But if you have a longer lunge and you like to sink a little bit deeper into your hips, then the wheel here and underneath the front leg might work better. Okay, so find where you like the wheel. All right, now we want this left hip to come forward. So the left toes can tuck under to push the hip forward. You can engage the left glute to push the hip forward, but the moral of the story is we just want that left hip, that back hip to push forward to find a lot of stability here. Okay, so think of like a screw top, like your hips are like a screw top. The front hip goes back and the back hip goes forward, so just like you're screwing a top. All right, so keep that left hip forward, long into your torso. Bring both hands to my front right thigh and start to push into it. All right, so you're creating a little bit of openness here in this front hip flexor, this right hip flexor, but also length in your spine. So pressing into the front knee, and you can start to adjust through the hips. So as you're pressing into this front leg, you might see this back hip want to come back. Keep pressing it forward. All right, now from here, keeping the length in the torso, arms start to lift high. Readjust the hips. So now we're adding some length in the body. You might feel a little more tug on this left hip flexor. All right, gaze start to shift up. Keep that left hip tracking forward. All right, so we got about 40 seconds or so here. All right, you can keep the arms long, or you can start to turn this into a back bend, bending the elbows to help open up the front side body, and squeeze the upper shoulders together. All right, so that's a very upper back engaged back bend. If you want a little bit more, maybe arms lift high, and then using the arms as leverage to pull the body up and back. Always moving with our breath. And then also maybe interlacing the fingers. The fingers give you some leverage to pull up and away from, and then the arms give you that weight that we were talking about earlier. So 10 more seconds here, finding your depth. All right, inhale, rise up. We'll take a half splits for our counter pose. Hands frame this right foot. We'll lose the wheel for this counter pose. So more so for the reversal of our back bend. So straighten this front leg. I don't like to sit all the way back on this back heel. I like to stay lifted, but do what feels best for you. All right, and then reversing the way of our back bend. So we just took a pretty deep back bend. So to help reverse that, let's bring our gaze down towards our left knee, or maybe all the way towards our navel. Just one more breath. All right, inhale, come forward. And then bring the knees back together. Quick little hero's pose. It's releasing the tension in the hips, little rock side to side. Find your breath. All right, second side. Left leg forward, right leg back. Find the position of your wheel. All right, so if you like the wheel underneath the hamstring and behind the calf, that felt good. Go ahead there. If you found it more helpful to bring the wheel back underneath the hip, and then go right there. All right, so we'll come up. Find the position of your back leg. So start to feel that right hip flexor engage and start to open up. All right, Right hip is pressing forward. Remember how you had that back foot on the other side, so curl the toes if that felt good, or keep that engagement moving forward. All right, stabilize your hips. Both hands come to your front left knee. All right, so press into your left knee. Lengthen the spine. Nice big breath in. Exhale. All right, now we start to involve the arms. Arms lift above the head. Gaze can start to shift up. Feel that right hip move forward. So remember our screw top analogy on the other side. Right hip forward, left hip back. All right, now from here, you can start to bend the elbows, moving into your back bends. If you have a favorite style that worked on the other side, arms long, hands interlaced, whatever felt good. We'll take about another 30 seconds here. So think about moving with your breath. On the inhales, we lift up. And on the exhales, we engage to come back. Keep the right glute engaged, pressing forward. 10 more seconds. And then change. Inhale brings us all the way back up. Hands frame the front foot. Lose the wheel. And we'll take our half splits for our counter. Straighten the front leg. Remember the option sitting all the way back or staying lifted off that back heel. And then bring in your gaze towards the mat, towards the back knee, or all the way towards your navel. Find your breath. Just one more breath here. All right, change, come forward. And then we'll bring the knees back together and finding our way into our hero's pose. All right, so we just have a few more things we're going to do. Next, we're going to work into Skandasana. So Skandasana with the wheel is very, very intense, lifting that side leg up. So play around with this. I'll show the version of Skandasana, 2 versions of Skandasana without the wheel and then version with the wheel. So again, the wheel will add a lot of intensity, so just pay attention to the hips, especially the outside of the hips, how they feel during this pose. So Skandasana is a long, low lunge that's working on the groin and the hips, okay? So one version of Skandasana without the wheel would be a traditional long, low lunge where the left knee is bent, the right leg is forward, the knife edge of the right foot is being pressed into the mat, and we find a lot of openness here. All right, so that's one version. If there's another version of Skandasana that you'd like to take, maybe the toes high version, that's going to be more in the bottom half of the bottom of our hamstring, excuse me. All right, so that's another version here. But the version we're going to work on today with the wheel is going to be Skandasana with the wheel. So it's going to open up the inner part of the hamstring, the groin, and also a little bit of compression for your outside hip. Okay, so this is a weird one to get into, so take your time getting into this. I like to, so we're going to start with the right leg out, left leg bent. Okay, so I like to place my hands and create my base on my left side first. So bending left knee, I push my left elbow into my left knee. You see the wheel doesn't always want to cooperate. It just wants to crawl away from me sometimes. All right, so I'm going to bring it a little bit closer. Now both hands into the mat, transfer my weight to my left leg, place the arch of my right foot on the wheel. All right, take a couple breaths here. You might feel a little bit of cramping here at first, so we'll just hang out there until that goes away. All right, and then we'll slowly straighten this right leg. Now we're not going to be here for that long, maybe another 30 seconds. So you don't feel like you're tied here. All right, so if this doesn't feel good, come out, readjust, lose the wheel if you need to, and then come back into it. And find your breath. Sink deeper if that feels okay. Keep the knife edge of that right foot pressing down. That's 10 more seconds. Breathe with it. Last breath. And now pressing into the hands, we're going to lift up, bring in the right foot in, bring the wheel in with it, and then we'll bring our knees together, come back into your hero's pose. So knees together, hips to our heels. And we'll take a counter stretch to stretch out this right hip. So left hand reaches down, right arm's going to reach up and over. And then pressing into that right hip, gaze over the right elbow. Take 2 more breaths. and change. Inhale brings us up. Exhale. All right, second side. So we're going to bring our wheel to our left side. Remember the ways you get into this. So if you took it without the wheel, lose the wheel. If you like the wheel, take the wheel. All right, so bring the wheel close enough to you so you're not reaching for it. Both hands underneath the shoulders. Again, I like to keep my right elbow and right knee together, so that's really stable for me. All right, transfer the weight to my right leg, lift my left foot up, left arch on the wheel. All right, take some time here, feel it out. If you're feeling any kind of compression or any cramping that might happen there, just hang out. And then if you want to find your depth, find your depth. So 30 seconds on the clock. Remember our little analogy earlier about hips and siblings and all that fun stuff. Same kind of idea here. Right, so just feel this out. Don't have any expectations. Pay attention to your breath. Those long, nice, stable breaths. And 10 more seconds. Press into the hands. Slowly bring the left knee off the wheel, left foot off the wheel. Knees together. Hero's pose. All right, counter. Right hand down, left arm up and over. Find that big stretch. All right, and come back. All right, so just a couple more things. So we have a half saddle we're going to take with a twist with the wheel. So half saddle, this is where a personal prop of some sort might come in handy. Some of our knees just aren't set up to take half saddle. So if you have a couch cushion, a block, if you have a block, a pet that deserves to be sat on of some sort, right? So whatever you need to grab, go ahead and grab. So half saddle, what we're going to do is start with our left leg bent, right? So if you notice my left leg is bent, my left top of the foot is bent or is straight, okay? So the foot off to the side is not going to feel good for your knee or for your ankle, right? So you want the top of the foot onto the mat. So we're stretching out the top of the ankle as well. Okay, so I'm going to set my hips to the inside of this left heel, and that's where the block, small pet, child of some sort needs to come in handy. So you can set that underneath your left hip and to give you that stability to relieve pressure into your knee. Okay, so if you need that stability, it's there for you. Okay, now we're going to take our wheel and place our right heel on top of the wheel. All right, so now we have this nice half saddle with the lifted leg. Now, mindful of your right knee here. We don't want to push down too much into the right knee and hyperextend it. So keep a little engagement here into this right leg. All right, right fingers are going to come behind us. So it's like our second spine, pressing in behind us. So keep our torso lifted. Left hand is going to come anywhere on the outside of this right leg. So depending on your flexibility, you could grab the outside of your calf, maybe reaching for the ankle, or if you have the ability to reach for the knife edge of your foot, just go where it feels. All right. Now we're going to be here for about 30 seconds, so not too long. Okay, pressing into these back 5 fingers, we're lengthening the spine on the inhale. And on the exhale, gazing over this back shoulder and finding a twist. A lot's happening here. Lengthen inhale, twist on the exhale. Try to keep your spine as long as you can, reaching through the crown of the head and finding gentle twists on the exhales. Let's take 2 more breaths. Lift on the inhale and twist on the exhale. All right, slowly unpack your twist. I like to bring the gaze forward first, then releasing any foot or hand I have. Let's bring our foot off the wheel. Untuck this left leg. Remove any props if you have any props. And then take a few moments here. Shake out the legs. And you get some movement back into your hamstrings, whatever feels good for you. All right, and we'll do the same thing other side. Now this time the right leg's going to come back, so take any prop or thing that you might have used, and we'll move that into our right hip this time. Left leg's going to come on top of the wheel. And just remember, this right top of the right foot is on the mat, so it's not off to the side. We don't want to create any tension in the ankle. All right, now this side might be different, so feel it out. Left hand's come back behind us. Right hand comes up. We're going to grab the outside of our left calf, ankle, or knife edge of the foot. So whatever feels good on or was achievable on that other side. Okay, so Few breaths here. Lengthen up on the inhale, pressing the back 5 fingers, and on the exhale, gazing over your left shoulder. A few more breaths. Lifting through the crown of the head, inhale. Twisting over your left shoulder, exhale. 2 more breaths. All right, unpacking this, bring the gaze forward first, and releasing our twist, releasing the foot. All right, then untuck your legs. We'll take our legs out straight again, and shake out the legs. So we got one more thing we're going to work on today. That's a forearm wheel. So very similar to how we warmed up class. We're just going to hang out there a little bit longer this time. So our forearm wheel comes in stages, just like everything, right? So feel this out. If your elbows touch the mat, you have a lot of options to do things with the legs. If your elbows don't touch the mat yet, we're just going to hang out there and work on the stretch, okay? So grab your wheel. Keep the knees bent, feet about hip distance apart. Bring the wheel roughly to about between the shoulder blades. All right, it's a good starting point. You want to be able to reach up and grab the wheel with the hands pretty easily. So if you're reaching back and you just can't find the wheel, bring the wheel closer up to the top of your neck so you can reach back and grab it pretty easily. All right, now thumbs on the outside, fingers on the inside, elbows squeeze in next to your ears. So again, that's that good rotation for your shoulders. As we're coming back, we don't want the elbows wide. That's going to put a lot of stretch on our rotator cuffs. Okay, so elbows squeezed in, press into the heels, lift the hips. As you notice, I'm going to walk my heels in with my hips and create that stable base. Now, my elbows come down to the ground. If your elbows come down to the ground, cool. If not, maybe they're hanging out here. Just stay there and feel that big stretch. So that's a big stretch that's happening all through the front side of your body. All right, so just enjoy that nice juicy stretch. But if the elbows do come down to the ground, you can work into your forearm wheel. All right, so you see me walking my heels closer to my hips. I'm going to press my elbows into the ground, keep my hands on the wheel, and then press into the heels, lift my hips, and find my way into my forearm wheel. All right, now, so that's a great stretch for the shoulders. If you want to keep with the theme of what we've been working on and work on the hips, one leg at a time, so first, keep your shoulders and your upper back on the wheel, and we're going to start to straighten the legs. All right, so this is going to be our straight leg forearm wheel. All right, so maybe the feet go straight. The feet don't have to touch in the center, but you want to bring them towards the center line. All right, now start to drive the balls of the feet towards the ground, engage the glutes, and press the hips up. Maybe the crown of the head comes down to the ground. Take about 3 more breaths here. Breathe here. Lengthen, inhale. Press the balls of the feet on the exhale. 1 more breath. All right, now slowly we rebuild our base. So bring the feet back in. You want to create that stable base. All right, now the base is reestablished. Press into the heels. Bring the hips towards the mat. Release the wheel. And grab onto the shins. And come forward. All right, now let's push the wheel off to the side. Grab the shins. We'll come onto our backs. So we are done with the wheel for the day. So onto our backs. Still hands on the shins. We'll make some big knee circles. And it's getting some nice mobility into our hips. So a couple times in one direction, a couple times in the other direction. They don't have to even be unified. They can be pretty erratic. And just whatever feels good for your knees and your hips. And we'll end with a happy baby. So grabbing the soles of the feet, knees up to the outside of your torso. And start to pull down and press up at the same time. Little rock side to side. And if you like your laughing happy baby or there's a variation you'd like to take, you can go right ahead. Just looking to stabilize the hips one more time before we end our class. So whenever you're ready, release the feet, bring the knees into the chest, and grab the top of the shins. You reach across the shins, grab for opposite fingers, elbows, wrists, whatever you can. Forehead squeezes in towards the knees. Take a deep breath in. Squeeze on the exhale. And then release long into your final Shavasana. Arms out long. Legs out wide. And take up some space. Thank you so much for joining us in your home with our wheel classes, with our online classes. Love being able to see you folks in your houses. Look forward to seeing you in the studio soon. Contact us if you need anything. Have a beautiful one. Namaste.